Hey y'all, hey, it's Febury. How are you this evening? Trying to adjust the light. Good. So, let's get started. As we all know, I'm Febury Hassan, a relationship and personal development coach. And the premise behind all my work is that every relationship you're having is ultimately a reflection of the one that you're having with yourself. And all your relationships are just a barometer to show your internal beliefs and thinking. Additionally, as I always say, just consider this your dressing room. You don't have to keep it. You don't like it, just try it on. You can leave it right here. Don't try it on. It's all up to you. I always say that, so I'm saying it again today. So, I guess you saw the title. The title is really interesting and important to me, so that's why I talk about it. But anyway, I guess I always forget to say this. I'm an author. There's my book. It's always I'm not selling anything, but anyway, I'm supposed to do that. So, I really want to talk a little bit further, and there's so many things that I do believe that are creating to the demise of relationships in the African American community. Particularly, I do think it's permeated throughout our society, but especially in the African American community, some of the things that are really pertinent and dominant are the sense of hyper and toxic masculinity as well as hyper-feminism, which are both really, really detrimental to us not appreciating and honoring and loving one another in our true feminine energy and our true masculine energy. We've become so, like better verbiage is perfect what it says, hyper on both ends. We have taken things to an extreme, the hyper-feminism that is very detrimental to allowing women to be loved and cherished the way that we say that we want to be. We're kind of like on this equal and same thing with that. Like we're equals, as I told you before, in spirit and energy and as human beings, but we're not the same. And our needs are not the same from one another. And we have taken this to a really dangerous place with the hyper-feminism. And it's okay to be pro-woman doesn't mean you have to be anti-man. And unfortunately, that's what's happened when you use the word hyper-feminism, is that now we're anti-man. And anything that represents that, and we're putting that down, and it's making women better than and men less than, and where it's actually, like I said again, we're two peas in the same pod, and we could have such beautiful, healthy relationships if we would really learn to appreciate our differences in who we are as both men and women and masculine and feminine energy. But instead we have again created this hyper situation, hyper-feminism, that is completely derogatory and negative towards men. And I don't think that was ever really the intention. In its purest sense, women had a sense of wanting to be treated respectfully for what they brought to the table and their value, be it the homemaker or in the workforce, outside, as original teachers and mothers. So we really, that's what was really in essence that was wanted. And somewhere down the line, it's gotten really out of hand that all of a sudden it's become anti-male, which I can't personally buy into. I would never buy into, and I wouldn't want any the women that I know to buy into. The sense that to truly be feminine is actually to be very complementary of the male and the masculine energy in its truest forms. And when men are in their masculinity, and we're not talking about the hyper and toxic masculinity at this point, we're just talking about hyper feminism, where it has gone awry. And now we're again, because both of those forces, believe it or not, are really, really masculine in their energy. So here are these women talking about hyper feminism, but they're not talking about being really feminine. Actually, the energy in hyper-feminism is very masculine. It's very hard. It's rigid. My way, no way. I'm going to force this on you. And that's not ultimately the feminine energy. The feminism is very receiving. It's much more gracious and compassionate and loving than I'm going to force you to do X, Y, and Z. And I think there always comes a time when one has to fight for some things in the world. I mean, sometimes you just have to stand up and fight. But we've gotten to the point where now, because of hyper-feminism and hyper and toxic masculinity, we're fighting each other like this. We are an explosion. We are a keg. We are blowing up, and there is just no give. And until someone waves the white flag and someone says this is not ultimately what we want, this is ultimately not positive and productive, we're going to keep blowing up. And it's just escalating and escalating and escalating. And what it is that they're feeding off of one another. So if you think about it, if you try to go to hyper masculinity, which is very much about very dominant masculine roles, it's about sexuality and physicality and, very, very rigid male roles and only representing men that way. And toxic masculinity is really more angry. And that's what the verbiage that is used from a psychological standpoint about toxic masculinity. It really only allows men to express one emotion, which is anger. And so you put these two forces together, and they just keep escalating and keep escalating, and no one's willing to give. No one's willing to back down. I'm right, I'm better, I'm worthy, this is what I deserve, and you don't deserve this because I deserve that. And not realizing that we could complement one another if we bring that down some. Women want to be honored and valued for what they bring to the table. Men want to be honored and valued for what they bring to the table. But what has happened, and all of us are seeing what has happened, but there's a history behind this. Again, as we talked before, you start disrespecting the feminine and taking it to a place of not being appreciated, which women have to be honored and appreciated. We created this sense of, okay, if you're not going to appreciate me doing this, if you're not going to appreciate me being loving and nurturing and soft and compassionate, I'm going to give you this. I'm going to be more like you. And then we become this explosion keg. And then it's expounded by men who don't appreciate women at all. Of course, it's not all men. We're only talking about those that do not appreciate women. Men who are not appreciating women, seeing them as sexual objects, objectifying, saying all types of derogatory things because of their hurt and their pain and their anger, and it just keeps feeding off of each other. You know, again, you do not have the right to walk up to a woman and touch her, period. I have been like fully clothed, and I've had a man, you know, when he walks up to me and he's talking to me, he touches me on the small of my back. And I'm like, you don't know me. Why do you have to touch me in order to converse with me or to say, ask me my name or what have you? And then I have really had myself and other women had the experience of when they say, hey, don't touch me, this person becomes angry. Like, how dare you tell me not to touch you? Like, what's wrong with you? You don't like men. It's like, whoa, completely different conversation. I want you to respect my boundaries and my personal space. And so again, so you use hyper-masculinity, and then you have a woman saying, I want you to respect my boundaries and my space. Now she becomes this feminist and anti-man, and those things aren't always what's really happening. But it's like no matter what we say to one another now is viewed one way or the other. You have men who are afraid just to start a dialogue with a woman because he's afraid she's a hyper-feminist. Or she's going to, become angry or upset because he even spoke to her. And I'm not this, it's just a reciprocal effect of everything that's going on. So now men don't naturally talk to women. Women complain that men don't naturally talk to them. But there are many women who become angry simply because you spoke to them. And there are many men who become angry if a woman rejects them. So again, we have this hyper-feminism as well as this hyper-masculinity that is just getting out of control. No matter what we do, we're viewing each other out of these lenses. Hey, Robert, we're viewing each other out of these lenses that are counterproductive to us having engaging relationships. Like, if you're afraid as a man to talk to me because you don't know if I'm some hyper-feminist, and whatever you say to me, if you say, oh, you're pretty, I'm going to be like, oh, you're objectifying me. Like, never mind, I won't talk to you. But also on women's end, it's like, okay, he comes up to me, he starts talking to me, but I'm not interested in him. And when I say it politely or not, he's like, oh, you're a bitch. It's like, whoa, where is all of this coming from? There's no appreciation for either side. Either side. And we just keep, again, as I said before, it just keeps blowing up. I had a really interesting but also unfortunate situation happened. I'm going to tell you guys this story, right? So I had gone out with a girlfriend and we just hung out for a while. And so we were like, the night's over. It's early, right? And so I said, you know what? So she went her way, I went my way, and we were not driving together. I was driving the car separately. And so I said, well, you know what? I'm going to stop by my boy's spot because I know he'll be there. And even though I was by myself, I felt comfortable because I knew he would be there. That was just a given, and I could go into this location and I would feel very comfortable. So I go, I park my car at the parking lot, and the parking lot's lit. Lots of cars out there. People are kind of, walking around. So again, I feel very comfortable. I park my car under the lamppost. And so as I'm parking, And actually, I was in my daughter's car, and her car, she's a smaller car, and I have an SUV. I'm used to being in my SUV, but I was like, okay, I'm like right on the ground, because her car is smaller. And so a guy pulls up beside me, and I was kind of like, like I was shocked, this person, because I didn't really quite see him in my peripheral initially. And so he was like, smile. And I was like, for what? And I was like, I was trying to see who was coming up on me. And he was like, it's just me. So at first I kind of, looked at him a bit. He was far enough away from me that I felt comfortable, because he was still in his vehicle, nice little Mercedes, 2-door convertible coupe, not so much a car made him, but again, I'm just saying it was a smaller vehicle, so I could completely see him. I was in a smaller vehicle, so he could see me. So I was like, okay, so he said, smile. At first I said, and then I kind of screwed my face and I smiled. So that kind of broke the ice between us. And so he was conversing with me, and he was like, oh, so, how you doing? Where you going? Then he said, where are we going? I was like, I'm going over here. I don't know where you're going, but I'm going over here. So he continues to converse with me. So he gets out of the car, and I notice he has a wedding ring on. And I was like, So I was like, yeah, I don't talk to married men like that, because he was obviously trying to engage me, because we had, just a little dialogue or what have you. And he was like, no, me and my wife were in an open relationship. She understands me. And I was like, oh, that's cool for you and your wife. Again, I don't date married men. I was not offended. I was not shocked. I was just like, I don't date married men. So he still kept trying to engage me. Oh, back up a little bit. So when he was in the car, we kind of joked. I said, stop trying to talk to me. You're probably short anyway. I'm really tall. I'm 5'10", but I was just joking with him. He was like, well, you're probably fat. And I was like, oh, I could be a little fluffy, So, we really were having just a very engaging, playful dialogue. So I thought. So he, so once he gets out of the car, and I'm like, I see the wedding ring. And he was like, well, at least I'm honest. I'm like, well, good for you. And your honesty is just, I don't date married men. So I get ready to get out of the car, and he's like, oh, wow, you're not fluffy at all. And I'm like, okay, well, still I don't date married men, So I'm getting ready to go about my way. And so he said something. He was like, come back here. And I was like, I think you might want to talk to your wife like that. But again, I'm going where I'm going. But again, still we're smiling, we're laughing. So I go on about my business. I'm cool. I'm probably in this location for maybe 30 minutes, an hour tops, right? I see my homeboy. I'm like, hey, so I'm like going to the back. I'm chill. I'm sit down. I come back out, and I'm like, I'm looking at my car. I was like, is my tire flat? And I was like, my tire was flat. And I was like, oh my God. There was no indicator light or anything on initially. So I'm thinking, I don't know why the tire's flat, right? So there's a gentleman standing under another lamp post not too far away. He's like in a little older SUV or what have you. And he's like, everything good? I'm like, no, my tire's flat. So he's like, I can change it for you if you need me to. So again, there are people driving around, and I'm kind of keeping my distance, watching my back, right? So I was like, okay, so he has the good jack, kind of just kind of like pump up. You didn't have to screw it or anything. So I'm like, great. So we get the spare tire. He changes it, and I noticed when he takes the tire off completely, it had a complete puncture in it. Like somebody had punctured my tire. And I was like, tell me this guy did not get upset and puncture my tire, because there was no one really around when I went in. Like people, again, were around, but not, in our immediate vicinity. And I didn't know anyone like that. I'm still thinking, who the hell would puncture my tire on purpose? So I was like, and that really what started this conversation that we're having right now about how, again, I don't know if he punctured my tire or not, y'all. I really don't know, because actually I started side-eyeing the guy that was helping me, like thinking, did he see me go in and wanted me to be the damsel in distress, and he was going to help me, see how we just start totally bugging out? I was just like, did somebody puncture? But someone did, in fact, puncture my tire. So it was like a dual conversation. Like I'm looking at the guy, because after he put my tire on, he tried to engage me and was like, so, you're dating? I was like, yeah, I gotta go, but really appreciate you changing my tire. But what I really started to think about is, because I, explained this story to a few other people, and they were like, yeah, it happens. And I've heard of women, rejecting men and just by simply saying, no, thank you, I don't want your number, or no, I don't want to go out with you. And, like I said, one young lady, I believe she was shot, and so I'm like, wow, like we being women are becoming afraid to even say no, which is our right, without fearing for our lives or our safety. And that's crazy. That's really, really crazy. Like, I don't know if he punctured my tire or not, but I do believe that he did. Like I said, we had a very pleasant dialogue, and even though I recognize there are times I'm being probably even more pleasant than need be, simply because I'm so now hyper aware of men becoming angry when they're rejected, and even the nicest of ways. And I'm like, wow, what have we come to in our relationships where we cannot politely say no thank you, where we can't just say I'm not interested in conversing with you or having a dialogue with you or giving you my number without the fear that something bad will happen to us at the hand of that person. That's really crazy. That we as women are feeling the negativity and the toxicity behind toxic and hyper-masculinity, that men are being so aggressive towards us, or even sometimes passive aggressive like this person was with me, that we can't even fully be ourselves as we may very well want to. So if you're listening to what I'm saying, we're having this duality of things going on. Men are being so aggressive and so angry towards women that it's making it difficult to us to be in the level of feminine energy that we want to be in with you. And then in turn, women are being such hyper feminist that it's making it difficult for men to cater to and provide for and be present to women, because again, we're powder kegs. We're bumping heads so hard with this hyper-feminism and this hyper and toxic masculinity that there's no complement at all in our relationships. And each one, for those of us who want to be really authentic, women who want to fully embrace their feminine energy and create a nurturing and soft place, are like, whoa, with whom can I do this? With whom can I feel safe to do this with? And men are saying the same thing. I want to provide, I want to protect, I want to be present to her, I want to take care of her. But whoa, who can I give this to if women are coming across as hyper-feminist and I don't know which woman I can approach and just say, hi, beautiful, without her going off and going into a tangent. So, like, what are we supposed to do here, people? Like, we have got to get back to some basics. Some semblance of something that makes sense, because these two energies are killing us. I'm a huge fan of the masculine and the feminine, but this hyper is where we are right now, and we've got to bring it down. We truly have gotten to a point where we either fear one another or downright don't like each other, and that's crazy. We've gotten to a place where all we use one another for is sex or what we can get out of each other. There's absolutely no respect for individuals or for women or for men. And it's both of us. This is not just to beat up either sex. This is really both of us. This is all of us acting out of our hurt and pain and rejection on either side. Women not feeling protected and provided for and loved and nurtured, say, fine, fuck it, I'll do it myself. Which, again, I can totally understand, but it's not serving us. And then men saying, well, damn, if you're going to do it yourself and you want to act like a man, fine. There's nothing I can do for you. And so we've left it constantly elevating that and elevating that and elevating that to the complete demise of our relationships. The complete demise of our relationships. Men don't come and talk to women anymore. And I've actually had dialogues with men who really say, I don't know what I can say anymore. I don't know what is now considered offensive. And honestly, guys, that part's on men who have been so disrespectful for so long, who've now created women who who are guarded and immediately go off and snap no matter what you say. And now in turn, though, that's created women even more so who don't feel protected, who don't feel loved and valued, to go off and be snappy and disrespectful. So it's, again, it's a constant. We're constantly battling one another, constantly butting heads, constantly just, that's where we are. And I see it all day, every day, on Facebook and talking to people on one-on-one interactions. We have got to decide, make a decision to bring this down. Or as I said before, we're going to kill ourselves and each other if we do not stop the hyper-feminism and the hyper-masculinity. It does not serve us. It is of no value in our relationships. We don't stop it and bring it down. Men have got to feel comfortable coming and approaching women in a loving, respectful way. Women have got to feel comfortable receiving men in a respectful and loving way. But we've created environments where that does not exist. We've created environments where we're constantly fighting. We're constantly in competition with one another. Who's better? Who's stronger, tougher? I can fly up in a pan, or whatever the sayings are. That's the environment that we've created. And we've got to get back to respecting, or if not even back to, because I don't even know if we were ever really there. I think there was a time when gender roles were important, but were they really respected? Because I think a lot of women went to this place of hyper-feminism because those roles were not respected. Being a wife and being a mother was not respected because there were men who did step out and then left families or women to fend for themselves and their children, and then they had to go get subpar employment, did not adequately do that for them, and then they start demanding more rights. Those things are fair enough, but now we've taken it to another place. Having equal pay for equal work makes sense. Our value makes sense. But we have to start to value one another for what we bring to our spiritual and emotional energy. And that's what we've lost. We can get equal pay all day long, and then what? We can be seen as equals, really, for whatever that's ever going to mean. And then what? Because men and women can never do the same thing. We're just not built that way. And I really just don't understand that. Like, we're not built the same way inside or outside. And for us to behave and think that we are is really counterproductive and counterintuitive. Yes, women can do a lot of amazing things. Men can do a lot of amazing things. But we were not born or meant to do the same things. We were meant to complement one another and bring value to the planet as two people coming together. Two sexes coming together, two energies coming together. And we've lost that. And that is what I really want us to focus on getting back to. So if even for a moment, we could think before we speak, not out of our pain, or not out of a sense of not feeling good enough, or thinking the person in front of us is good enough, but really from a sense of just common compassion, that if you have a mother that you respect and love, that you would give that same level of respect and love. It doesn't have to be in the same manner you would give it to your mother, but you would give what you want your mother, your daughter, your aunt, whomever to receive. And that's to men. From a standpoint of women, if you have sons or fathers or brothers, that you would give men, I would pray, the level of respect and compassion that you would want someone to give your son or your brother or your father when they're in the workforce or walking down the street or any type of activity, that you would treat them with the level of dignity and respect that you would want someone to treat your child, your brother, your husband, your son. We cannot talk about what other people are doing to us when we're doing things to ourselves and each other as well. That's a fight that has to be fought as well, but we have to first and foremost get back to some very basic things with one another, and that's just common respect and decency. Looking people in the eyes and saying hello. When someone opens a door for you, ladies, thank you. No one owes us, anyone on this planet, anything. Men, if a woman just says no, she just means no. She's just not the one for you. That's quite all right. No backlash. We have got to reverse this hyper sense of things that we have going on within our energy. Because if we don't, we're going to explode. And we're passing on to the current generation this level of negativity, this level of anger, because both sides are very angry. And until we release that anger, and until we appreciate one another, until we show one another some grace, some compassion, some sensitivity and respect, we're going to continue on this downward spiral. And getting up is going to be so much more difficult. So that's what I have to say today, that again, in our communities, we've got to bring it down a notch, guys. We've got to find a place to love. And as always, I'll tell you, it starts with you. I don't hold men accountable before I hold myself accountable. You can't hold women accountable, men, till you hold yourself accountable. So I pray that you do your part. I promise to do mine as always. Again, you're never without power, because true power lies within. I love you. Peace.